Okay, so now that I have that refined selection, it allows me to soften up everything outside of that with this eraser. But it will also show me where I have a lot of other stuff that needs to be refined, that has pixels that I can't adjust. And that's within these areas. And clouds aren't universally soft everywhere, so it's okay to have some hard edges. You just want to be able to control them all. And with that sky background, you can certainly see, kind of like you could with the gray, where the hard edges are making it less believable, or less than believable. So the answer to that is with clone stamp, of course. And so I turn that clone stamp layer back on, and I see what adjustments still need to be made. What can be erased underneath, what can be adjusted, and of course what can be transitioned through the clone stamp tool. You can also use dodge and burn, because everything is now on one layer, with the clone stamp on a layer above and then all of your combined clouds underneath. So in this case, I might want to burn the clone stamp layer a little bit, just in the midtones. Very slight exposure, and just darken some of these shadows to make this leg feel a little bit more substantial. And then in other areas, I might want to dodge. Right now, I'm still on the burning tool. Hitting little areas. Very soft-edged tools, remember. And then the last tool I want to show you to kind of finish this all off is often what you'll use for linear elements. And my bird had a few, like little strings of feathers coming off. And it's what's called the smudge tool. Now I'm going to do it on a copy layer because it's a pretty strong tool. It can be pretty disruptive. It's always safe to do it on a duplicate first. So I'll do it on this duplicate copy. And the smudge tool is kept with the blur tool, but at the bottom. And it looks like a little finger, and you think of it as turning your pixels into, on the layer you're on. You can sample from all layers, but I wouldn't do that. And it just pulls it out. So if I want to have kind of a more elongated looking snout, I have a strength of 50 here. I can weaken that, but you just kind of click and drag slightly. And it's like finger painting, basically. But why it works well for this project is it's very much like the wind pulling at the clouds. So I'm pulling at the layer behind my clone stamp layer. And if edges look a little too soft, I can give them more of a kind of direction here. Now if you use it too much, it's like whipping cream or something, and you'll smooth out everything, especially the interior of your clouds, too much. So this is more for like nipping and tucking. Now when it comes to linear elements like the tips of the wings, I can kind of stretch out certain aspects in a very believable way, just like the wind would tug at the edges of these clouds. And it will soften it as it goes. And you'll get a sense for what's too hard-edged once you start playing with it and once you see the edges shift a little bit with this smudge tool. So it's another way you can just soften edges a little bit that look a little too abrupt. And if you stipple with it, it's much like using an air gun and pushing the foaminess of the clouds around. But it's not going to erase. It's only going to smear the pixels back and forth. And you want to know what layer you're trying to affect. So if I want it on the clone stamp layer to kind of fix this a little bit, soften some of those edges. Clouds are really a variety of different edge controls. And that's basically the whole arsenal that we're going to use to make our clouds believable. Now my last step is to merge the clone stamp layer with the layers underneath. See, there's kind of my creature's outline. And then to show my creature tucked into the corner. So if I select both of these layers, merge them. If I want to be really cautious, I'll make a duplicate of the clone stamp layer, keep that underneath, and then just merge these two with Command E. So now everything's together on one layer, except for the sky, of course. The sky is separate. So I can change my clone stamp setting to be current layer only, and then I don't need to worry about compositing in the sky blue anymore, and I can do some final adjustments that way, where everything's on one layer together. And what I'm looking for and trying to avoid is anything that looks too much like kind of a linear path, especially anything that's too up and down vertical, because clouds tend to be more horizontal in their structure, at least this type of cloud. And then I can also just use the eraser. I'll keep it at a much lower opacity now. And just hit some of these edges. Let some of that sky come through the edge in some areas. Again, just kind of stippling with it where the edges look too crisp. But this is all your painting now, and it's your choices. To make it into the believable cloud that you want. Come on, catch up with me, computer. Again, this is all very hard processing on your computer, especially the smudge tool takes a lot of processing power. So if you feel like your computer's dragging a little bit, save your work. All right. So last little tips, kind of bringing it all together. I'm going to play with the color of the sky. I'm going to play with maybe the overall color of my clouds. So let's start with the sky first. Go to the sky layer and just, I like color balance a lot. Shifting with its tones just a little bit, help them match the cloud reference. Maybe put a little bit more yellow in the highlights of the sky. Maybe even a little bit more yellow in its shadows. And those differences will be subtle. You can also play with the levels if you want a more dramatic sky or a less dramatic sky. This is just the gradient layers, right? Can make it bolder that way if I want. And now the colors of the clouds themselves, all on this one layer now. I can adjust their levels, give them more contrast if I like. Brighten up their midtones a little bit, or deepen them if I want more stormy. Whatever kind of fits my vision. For something as soft as clouds, I tend to always limit the lights and darks a little bit. And since I have it as a copy, I can do a nice comparison. And I can always blend the two together. And in doing that, I might notice things I like or that I want to change. Maybe I'll use a little bit of the smudge tool in here. Some of these edges are a little too hard. Maybe hit it with some soft edge clone stamping. But again, this project's all about being bold and kind of painting with your reference, as opposed to just using it as is. All right, so now, maybe a little bit of that over here. Just anywhere things look a little too hard, too sharp. And now to finish it off, I'm just going to put my creature in the corner. So I take it up from the bottom layer, move it up above the sky. Right now, that's kind of cool. It's hidden by a perfectly shaped cloud. I'm going to transform it, make it a lot smaller, tuck it into a corner. I'll probably put it right here. So you can see the character I'm trying to suggest. I don't want it to be so big that it takes away from seeing the whole image. All right, so now it is ready. I save it. Save as, of course, a PSD file with all your layers. That's our working file type. I hit F11 to get back to the desktop, make sure it's there. Here it is. I'll mark that with a green color to let me know that that's what I go back in and work on. Then I'm going to save it as a TIFF. And I want to flatten it first. And this would be what I would print. Remember, we're doing this new step, making TIFF flattened layers. And then if we wanted to do any post-processing, we could do that. So save that, same name, as soon as it's finished, as a TIFF file with LZW turned on. Right. And this would allow me to run actions on it if I wanted to later. And now to turn it in as an online assignment, I'm going to save it as a JPEG. And just make sure that it's not more than 5 megabytes. And the JPEG I'm going to mark as orange, and the TIFF I usually will now mark as purple. All right, so I've got my files there to put up into the class photo bucket. And that's it for